Hey now, good morning. Happy Monday, PSW staff, clients, friends joining us. Monday Film Scoring, where we look at a scene from a movie, I take out the music, you guys come up with the best possible replacement for that scene, whether it's the credits or a pivotal moment. Last week we looked at Steve Jobs, the kind of pensive electronic score by Daniel Pemberton. And, each week we do a different genre, play along. So, this is good experience, good ear training for our ears. So just go on YouTube, Spotify, find music that fits the scene and send it to me. And then I embed your score, and, we have fun with music supervision. That's kind of what it is. Until we do our original scores, which, maybe we will at some point. So this one's going to be a fun one. It's kind of a spooky thriller, murder mystery, whodunit, because we looked at with Knives Out a few months ago. So this is going to be another childhood favorite of mine. Today we're going to look at the 1985 American mystery film, Clue.
Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean? Murder.
But only one of these suspects is the murderer. Paramount Pictures invites you to an evening of mystery.
Let us in! Let us in! Let us out! Let us out!
Murder.
This is getting quite serious.
And madness. In the movie that makes a scene of the crime.
So hold it!
Clue. It's not just a game anymore.
Clue's based on the board game. Remember the board game? The Parker's Brothers board game. British board game came out in 1949, so it goes back to then. And directed by Jonathan Lynn, English director, did My Cousin Vinny was his big movie, and then co-wrote it with John Landis, who did a lot of stuff with Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, and Beverly Hills Cop. Also did and Coming to America and Three Amigos, so did a lot of comedies. This is a kind of a black comedy. We've talked about that term before too. A lot of dark humor in this, but it's a PG movie. But there's a lot of wit and screwball comedy in this. But it's all kind of around these 6 guests that are invited to this big mansion in New England in the 50s. And it's this very strange mansion. And when they're invited, their host is killed very quickly. And so they're all have to figure out, who's the next one of them that could be killed, or who killed their host. And they have to identify this murderer. Because as people drop by the mansion, those people end up being dead, and they might be framed for murder. And so they're not sure if they're going to become the next victim, or if they're the ones that are going to be, the murder's going to be put on them. And it's all kind of around these all kind of comedic performances, Madeline Kahn in particular.
Yes, I did it. I killed Yvette. I hated her so much. It flames on the side of my face, heaving breaths.
She's hilarious. That was improvised. And Tim Curry, who's, says that this was one of his most favorite roles he played.
It was you! Yes? I asked you for your coat, and I recognized you as Colonel Mustard, and I prevented you from telling me your real name because I didn't want any of you to use any name other than your pseudonym, and I introduced myself to you as the butler, and I ran across the hall to the library!
So this comes out in 1985, the same year as Back to the Future. Professor Plum is played by Christopher Lloyd, so Christopher Lloyd's in this movie and Back to the Future the same year. So big year for him. And this movie's filmed all in Paramount on the lot and the stages, except for in Pasadena, they show the opening scene that we're going to take a look at. It was in this big mansion, Max Bush mansion, that burned down actually in 2005. Paul Revere Williams, that we looked at, the great architect, had signed that home, and it's a real shame but it's on San Rafael. Gorgeous mansion. So they filmed the exterior and then one scene in the movie, the ballroom scene there. Music's by John Morris. Don't think we've looked at him, but he scored most of Mel Brooks's comedies. American composer, Broadway also composer, but Juilliard trained, went to Juilliard School, one of the best music schools in the world, but composed Spaceballs and Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, the producers, so did a lot of stuff with Mel Brooks, but then, did this one, and the scene we're going to be looking at is the opening scene. This is this is just kind of, why don't we just take a look at the very opening titles. This isn't the exact scene we're going to score, but just to get us in the mood of what the score sounds like. So those are kind of cool titles with the very moody, gothic kind of feel in the background. So let's take a look at the scene. This is the opening. So Tim Curry's the butler. He's also the person, I don't want to spoil it, but probably is the killer, actually, because there's 3 different endings. And it's very clever how the filmmakers did this movie. They all had different endings. And so John Landis co-wrote it, originally wanted it where each movie theater would have a different ending. So people would have to go on different nights and they would see which ending, you could be A, B, or C. So there are 3 different endings. They scrapped that idea. And so they just put all 3 in there. This is how it could have happened, this is how it could have happened, and then this is how it did happen. Very clever way at the end of I don't know any other movie actually that did something like that. So that's kind of a cool way. So we see Tim Curry, this is the opening, going into his mansion before the guests arrive. This is, so it's kind of, spooky scene. So let's take a look. So the score for this is the staccato horns, right? And then we got long string lines going in. Long strings with a lot of brass for accents. French horns and trumpets for accenting. But he's using the full orchestra for this. We've seen a lot of spooky horror, mystery films using the orchestra. Last week, it was an electronic score. Sometimes composers can do electronic, sometimes they can do jazz. Many times, though, composers like John Williams, in this case John Morris, they use the orchestra, and they're saying, well, let's see what kind of. Sometimes strings can sound very romantic, sometimes strings can sound very scary, like in Psycho. This sounds scary because it's in the minor key, right? It's an A minor. So why don't we just take a look, just atmospherically, just without any music. So it's still scary because of the setting, right? So, but, I mean, it wouldn't pass for audiences. You would want to see a score. So the mood is still there, but then it's going to enhance the mood. And it's a comedy, but I do want you to come up with something spooky, something eerie, something mysterious, like, murder. There's a murder mystery. There's people that, but it's fun. It's not a thrasher movie. It's kind of a murder mystery comedy. So, but keep the music somewhat spooky and fun, and we've done this before with Beetlejuice and something like that, where it's that comedic horror element. So you guys can do it. Just wanted to share with you one of my favorite movies, and maybe something you guys have have seen before. It's a real classic. It broke even at the box office but then became a real cult classic, and people have kind of latched onto it because people love mysteries, Agatha Christie and Knives Out and all that kind of whodunit stuff, and that's a lot of fun. So get it into me, by tomorrow or something like that. See the results Friday. We're going to look at a composer team on Thursday because I'll be in Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're going to make it a great week. Okay, thanks a lot, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.